Psychological warfare, manuals, examples, and how to win without shooting. Good. If you're here, it means you survived the first episode. Or at least, you weren't completely neutralized. That's already an advantage. Today we are going to move forward. Less theory. More execution. More real examples. Because psychological warfare is not understood by reading definitions. It is understood by observing how it is applied and how it works. First, a necessary clarification. Psychological warfare is not chaos. It is not improvisation. It is not spontaneous creativity. It's discipline. It is structure. It is method. The armies that use it well. They do not try to influence. They design results. And that implies something that most people ignore. Effective manipulation is systematic. Today we are going to analyze that. Through real cases. Not theories. Not opinions. Cases. Let's start with one of the clearest examples in the book. During World War II, pamphlets were dropped from airplanes. Thousands. Millions. But they were not generic messages. They weren't give up. They were not clumsy propaganda. They were carefully designed messages for specific soldiers. For example, the enemy's situation was analyzed. Lack of food. High lows. Low morale. And then the message didn't say, "They lose the war." It said something like, "Your officers know this is lost, why are you still here?" Notice the difference. Does not attack directly. It does not impose. Enter doubt. And that is key. Doubt is more powerful than lies. Because the lie can be rejected. The doubt remains. That is the first operating principle. Not convince. Sowing uncertainty. Now we move on to another case. In the Pacific Theater, against Japan. Propaganda had a problem. Cultural. Japanese soldiers did not give up easily. The concept of surrender was dishonorable. So what do you do when your enemy doesn't respond to your incentives? You don't change the objective. You change the frame. Instead of saying give up, the message is focused on survive for your family. It's not the same. One appeals to honor. The other, to responsibility. And that breaks the conditioning. The lesson is simple. You don't talk to the enemy you have. You speak to the human below. Now let's move forward. Another important example from the book. Operations where rumors were used. No official communications. No visible propaganda. Rumors. Information designed to appear organic. For example, information such as, such a unit was abandoned. Another front collapsed. The reinforcements are not coming. Nothing confirmed. Nothing official. But repeated enough. It becomes perceived reality. And here comes a key concept. Perception need not be true. It just needs to be believed. And when enough people believe something, they act as if it were true. And that creates real consequences. That is the point where psychological warfare becomes dangerous. It does not describe reality. It upsets her. Now, let's get to something more sophisticated. The use of narrative consistency. One of the recommendations of the book is that propaganda must be coherent. You can't say one thing today and another tomorrow. Because inconsistency breaks credibility. And without credibility, there is no influence. This seems obvious. But look at the world today. Contradictory messages. Changing narratives. Positions that adjust depending on the day. That's not strategy. That is weakness. The systems that win. They are the ones who maintain a clear line. Even when it's fake. Because consistency builds trust. And trust is the basis of influence. Now we turn to another historical example from the book. Radio transmissions directed at the enemy. It wasn't just news. They were a calculated mix of truths, half-truths, and lies. Because if everything is a lie, nobody believes. But if some things are verifiable, the rest is filtered. This is extremely important. Effective propaganda is not 100% false. It is partially true. Enough to pass the filter. And that makes it dangerous. Now let's get to something more uncomfortable. The book mentions that psychological warfare can also be directed towards the population itself. Not just the enemy. Because maintaining internal morale. It is as important as weakening the external one. This means that the information you consume, it is not always designed to inform you. Sometimes it is designed to maintain stability, or to avoid panic, or to direct behavior. And that's not necessarily malicious. It's strategic. But it implies something important. Not all information is neutral. It never has been. Now let's integrate all this. What do all these examples have in common? They are not random. They follow clear principles. First, understand the objective. You can't influence someone you don't understand. Second, adapt the message. There is no universal message. Third, repetition. One time doesn't work. Room. Credibility. Without it, everything fails. Fifth, timing. The moment matters as much as the content. And this is where most fail. Because he thinks this is just communicating. No. It's engineering. Perception engineering. Now let's bring this to the present. Today you don't need to throw pamphlets. You have social networks. You have algorithms. You have segmentation. You can direct specific messages to specific groups at specific times. That makes modern psychological warfare be more precise, more efficient, and more invisible. Before you could see the propaganda. Today, you feel it as content, as entertainment, as an opinion. And that's where it gets really dangerous. Because it lowers your defenses. And when you let your guard down, that's when you are most vulnerable. Now an important question. Can you win against this? Short answer? Not completely. But it can be resisted. As? First, recognizing patterns. Second, questioning strong emotions. If something makes you react immediately, it's probably designed for that. Third, understanding incentives. Always ask yourself, who benefits if I believe this? Room. Accepting uncertainty. You don't need to have an immediate opinion about everything. That's a trap. And finally, mental discipline. Not everything deserves your attention. And what you consume, it shapes you. It's that simple. Now, before closing, a final observation. Psychological warfare does not seek to destroy you. He seeks to use you. As an amplifier. As a transmitter. As a tool. And if you're not aware of that, chances are you are already being used. Not as an enemy, but as a resource. In the next episode, let's go deeper. Specific techniques. Emotional manipulation. Identity narratives. Use of fear. Use of pride. And how all that comes together to create extremely effective control systems. Until then, observe. Don't react. Analyze. Because in this war, the one who reacts first lose. See you in the next episode.